Okay, hello everybody. It's 9/11, coming up on 9/12 on a Tuesday. What day is it? November 12th, and we're talking to you about the tropics. Normally we're not this late in the year, but here we are. So we are live on our Fox Local stream and on our website, and I presume the app as well. I will confirm that for you right here, right now. Look. All right, so what are we talking about? Well, it is that right there. That is a tropical wave that is continuing to intensify at this hour, and this, candidly, is one of the more robust tropical waves you're going to see in November. Now, listen, we've had Francine, or Debbie, we had Milton, and we had Helene. In parts of Central Florida, some of those weren't that bad. Some parts of Central Florida, people lost part of their houses. There was trees on houses, significant flood damage and flood claims. So each one impacted areas very differently, and there's some people who didn't get a lot of bad stuff, in parts, some of the counties around Orlando. So it was very variable around Orlando and Central Florida, each three of those hurricanes. And remember, for Central Florida and Orlando to really get a major, oh my gosh, impact, the eye has got to go right over Orlando or right along I-4. Even in Milton, you probably forget that this got lost in the, everything after. The eye ended up well south of Orlando, because people still to this day ask me, why was it so much worse in Volusia County, yet in Orange County it was windy, but it's all about where the center goes. So as we go forward in this step by step process, remember, we're well inland, at least in Orlando. Yes, we have counties that are on the beaches, but it's all about where the eye goes when we get to the point of figuring out where it's going to come over Central Florida. That said, this may be the fourth hurricane to hit Florida this year. There has never been a year where 4 hurricanes have officially landfalled in Florida. Ivan in 2004 made landfall in Alabama. It was close to the state line. There's some websites that dispute it otherwise, but officially from the National Hurricane Center, it made landfall in Alabama. So there's never been a season where 4 hurricanes have hit Florida in the same season. This could be that year. There's the wave tonight. Big thunderstorms south of the center, but if you look, you're not seeing big turning yet. I mean, if you just look, there's not a lot of, ooh, this is going this way, this is going that way. It's not spinning a lot yet. It's getting there. It's getting there. Not quite there yet, though. Here's the global models tonight for this. A couple of things. First, notice it's west, then north, then northeast. And yes, there's a lot of spread here, but they all end up in the peninsula somewhere. So my point is, it's not like one model's over in Louisiana, one model's in Orlando, one's in the Keys, and then one's over Havana. No, they're all in the same state. So despite all of this uncertainty down here, they all end up hitting Florida. That's why the confidence is growing substantially that whatever this becomes is going to impact Florida in some way. Is it a major hurricane across the center of the state? Is it a Cat 5 that devastates the Keys? Is it a tropical storm in the Panhandle? I don't know yet. Those are all possible. I kind of have an opinion as to which is more likely at this point, and I'll share that in a second. But all of those are possible. So let me zoom in here and show you the a little easier to read. So the red line here is the Euro. Basically takes the eye over Miami area. The purple line is the GFS, the American weather model. Fort Myers, Naples, major hurricane, about Fort Pierce. Canadian model is at Cat 1. So this is a Cat 1. This is a Cat 4 or 5. This is a Cat 2. Then this is a tropical storm of Cat 1. So you got Cat 1, Cat 4, 5, 2-ish. So they're all different intensities, but anyway, you get the point. The artificial intelligence Euro is up here, Canadian is there, GFS is there, Euro is there. So there is a big spread where it may end up going. So we're going to get an update from this at 10, but we have a 90% chance of tropical development over the next week. This is going to happen as soon as tomorrow at this rate, to be honest. In that red zone, development likely by Friday, probably tomorrow, honestly. I will change this graphic for the news at 10. There will be a hurricane by the weekend, and all of Florida should watch close, but the development is going to occur in this red zone here in the Central Caribbean. So Sarah's up next, then Tony, then Valerie, then William. Now, will this be the last storm of the year? I think for Florida. I hope. Will it be the last hurricane or tropical storm? Probably not. Could something hit Cuba? Could something slam Puerto Rico in December this year? Yeah, there's data that's suggesting that. But for us, I hope, and we think that this is the last threat to Florida. But past Sara would be Tony, Valerie, then William. And if we get past those names in the basin overall, Adria and Braylon would be first up on the reserve list for this year. Here's all the storms so far. Patty, Isaac, Kirk, Leslie, Joyce, Gordon, Ernesto. Oscar was a small one right there. And you come closer. This will be a year that is remembered for a high number of impactful hurricanes. Not every season do they all hit the United States. I'll go back and play this again so you see the big view here. It'll load in a second. There's a lot of data in this graphic. It'll take a second. I'm showing you this to tee you up with the forecast for Sara. We talked about this, in fact, last fall. I was hired here in October and the hurricane special was done. I remember when the forecast came out in February. The first seasonal forecast from Colorado State came out way back to February. We did a whole thing on the 10 o'clock news about it, and then the next day. What was the very first seedling of what the season may hold was very active, a ton of storms, probably a lot hitting the United States and further west track. That's what the point I forgot in my head. It was said from the Weather Enterprise a gazillion times. Things would track further west. If I showed you the chart of last year, I don't have it made offhand. Everything was all offshore. Yes, there were some that hit, but this year more have hit land than have not. The steering brought things more west than last year. So this is going to be a year that's remembered for obviously Helene forever changed parts of the Carolinas. Beryl produced prolific tornadoes well inland, even up to upstate New York in July, early July. Francine was a big flood event in Louisiana. Milton, obviously self-explanatory. Naples, southwest Florida. The tornado outbreak in southeast Florida. We had flooding in Volusia, parts of Seminole and Orange County. But in Orlando, it was depending on where you were with Milton, how bad it was or not at all. But the tornado outbreak with Milton, the severe surge on the west coast, obviously the inland flooding with Helene, and then you see Debbie right here. Will we add another line to this? But if I had to guess, if it ends up north of Milton, it's going to be right between Debbie and Milton, something like that. Or it's going to go like this, the same angle that Milton did, just further south. It's either going to go perfectly between Debbie and Milton, or the same trajectory as Milton, just South Florida. That's, if I had to put chips on the table this far out, that's what I would guess. All right, so all of the pontificating out of the way. Here's the two scenarios tonight. This is going to develop into a tropical depression tomorrow. It might even be already now, to be honest with you. Let me show you. I mean, heck. Pull this up. I mean, just look right here. This is a better colorized satellite. They're firing very deep convection on the east side over here. It may very well be already a depression. It very well could be. So it's going to form into a depression as soon as tomorrow. A storm probably by Thursday. A hurricane as soon as Friday. It might even be Thursday night that it's a hurricane at this point. But probably Friday or Saturday for a hurricane. And then from there, the question is, where does it stay for the weekend? It's not going to move much this weekend. If the center stays offshore, from Central America, we're probably talking about a high-end hurricane that potentially could reach the mathematical limit of the atmosphere again, like Milton did. The pressure record that Milton failed to achieve was actually from Wilma, which is actually our analog for this storm, oddly enough. Wilma was about 882 millibars, and Milton bottomed out at about 890 something, if I remember correctly. So if the center stays off of land, this is probably, and I feel confident enough to say this with certainty, it's probably going to be a 3, 4, or 5 category hurricane right over in here. And then the question is, where does